There's something strangely appealing about books that can break your heart. And I love classics. I love heartbreak. So a better thing to do than give you the 7 classics that I think will break your heart. Or, you know, depending on how cold your heart is, maybe just think, oh, that's sad. First up is Flowers for Organon. And this is probably the most brutal on the list. I'd liken it to a close friend or relative getting a terminal illness. You know where it's going to end up, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. It is, in many ways, a classic story. It's about the rise, and then it's about the subsequent fall. In this case, it's of a character with low IQ. They're bullied by their co-workers and totally disregarded by everyone in society. But they're given a chance to glimpse a world that they never could, and to have their intelligence artificially altered. But the thing is, they were happy in the state that they were in. They didn't know any better. Ignorance truly was bliss. But then they were given this glimpse. They knew what they had been. They knew what they had. And at a certain point, they know that the decline is coming. But as they decline, they no longer can remember or process what is about to happen and what has happened. And as so often is the case in tragedy, it's people who are left behind. And it's the same in this book. It's characters who are adjacent in or surrounding to the protagonist who feel it the most. It's perhaps the most brutal because it is the most relatable. It is something that will inevitably happen to all of us. And it's just a reminder of that. Next up is The Idiot by Dostoevsky. In a similar way to Flowers for Organon, it's the adjacent characters which make this so heartbreaking. I don't really feel sorry for Prince Michigan. If anything, I'm just frustrated with him. And reading the end of the book and the decisions that he takes, there's just something so frustrating about it, as the prince is this incredibly innocent, honest and virtuous character. He's meant to be Dostoevsky's holy fool. And for the sake of this book, it's his virtue which caused him to take these just incredibly annoying routes and to create the heartbreak that he leaves behind. And it's a tragic end for him as well, and those that he chooses to be drawn towards. It's a mess, everything about it. But it's presented as virtuous, it's presented as him being honest, him being honourable. But I don't know if I agree with Dostoevsky's presentation of that the decision that he took was the most honourable one. But perhaps it is. Perhaps it is right to be drawn to the most downtrodden, to give your help to those who need it most, even if they don't want it, even if instead they're going to corrupt you. And to see that tragic end for the prince, to see the happiness and have a glimpse of the happiness that he could have had, is what makes this such a terrible end. It's what could have been. It's the hope that kills you. It really is. Next, we have The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. And it's another one which is about innocence. It is their innocence which means that they can't handle the world. They can't handle what they're in. And he's such a treasure, something that's untainted. The intolerable weight of what he has done, what he's experienced, and perhaps hopelessness or frustration with the world around him leads him down the path that he eventually takes. Yes, he has a companion for the duration of the story, and sure, it's sad for him, but I mean, maybe that's a bit callous to say that, you know, it is very upsetting for him. But I think it's more the perspective that it's written in, is we are being taken along with the prince. We grow to love and to care for him. And then on top of that, the lessons from the fox, which are just beautiful. And these pearls of wisdom that the fox offers are useful and, to be frank, should be implemented in all of our lives. But for the prince, it's too late. For the prince, there is no reconciliation. There is no return. He has this melancholy burden throughout the story. The more times you read it, the more that you see and begin to understand his character. And it just adds to the tragedy of the ending. It's charming. It's so well written. It's one I reread frequently. And perhaps that says something about me in terms of going looking for that sadness. But it really is a beautiful book. Next up is Hemingway's Farewell to Arms. And this is the first of 2 Hemingway books, because he really knew how to do tragedy. It again has the classic story structure of the rise and the fall, this time encapsulated through a relationship. It's set during the First World War, so to be honest, that's kind of tragedy enough. But Hemingway really knows how to pile it on. The way that he writes tragedy is very blunt. He doesn't really choose to dwell on it for very long. He says what happens, he moves on. And for me, that makes it so much more brutal, as, I don't know if it's because he doesn't dress it up with language, but it just sits with you and you have to process it. He's not going to do that for you. And I mean, in this one, it gets to a point where you think, oh, it's all going fine. Then he hits you, and then he hits you again. That 1-2, that combination, it's not good. It's really devastating. And yeah, it's a hard book to read. It's a hard book to finish. But I do think it's one of Hemingway's best pieces of writing. And the second Hemingway, is The Old Man and the Sea. It's really written just as almost a stream of consciousness. Hemingway has just captured life in 100 pages. There are no lies within this book. It tells the truth. No matter how much you put in sometimes, even if it is everything you've got, it might not be enough. But the only way to survive is to keep going. The only way not to get sucked into this tragedy that is life is to wake up the next day, to believe that luck is going to be on your side, to have a positive mindset, I suppose, as corny as that sounds, and to just keep going. It really is a perhaps steady decline interspersed with glimmers of hope. But again, that just adds to the tragedy. It is the hope and the potential for success that's so devastating for the old man. Although he doesn't feel it, we feel it for him. It's a book that I really connected to, one that I love rereading, and one of my favourite books. And every time that I reread it, even though I know what's coming, I still find it heartbreaking. I just love Hemingway's style in this. He knows how to make you feel, and it's not an easy thing to do, or it's not an easy thing for me to get from a book. There are a few books that do that, but these are the ones that connect with me. Next up is The Fratricides by Nikos Kazantzakis. This, in a similar way to The Farewell to Arms, it's already got a brutal setting, being set within the Greek Civil War. As often is the case with these civil wars, the community is wrenched in half, and caught between the two, we have Father Yanos, just trying to hold this community together. And he has his own way of going about things. He has a very short temper. He's not the easiest person to get on with. He can be harsh and unforgiving, particularly of those who are of the cloth and take advantage of their position. And I found it a very compelling story just for that nature and just for that setting. But as we learn more about the familial relations of Father Yanos, and when we get to perhaps the best closing line of any book, it is the real heartbreak that comes from it. All that we've learned before culminates into one line, one moment, and because it's the last line and nothing comes after that, I remember just sitting there trying to digest and process this journey that I've been on and how it ended. It was one of the few books that has made me pause and need to sit and just think. Finally, I'm sure one that most people are familiar with is John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, and it's another one where it's the hope that kills you. It's the closer and closer you get to where you want to be, the realization of your goals, and suddenly it's pulled from beneath you. And you have to take responsibility for that, to do the things which, yes, will break your heart, but the things which you need to do. When George is dealing with the situation, he does the right thing. He doesn't want to, and then he does it anyway. And part of the emotion that I feel within that is, one, the sadness of what he has to do, but also the internal struggle and the overcoming of what's easy. And that's something that I really respect and admire in the character of George, and standing up when you know it'd be easier to just let it go. But George rarely takes the easy option. He does sometimes, of course he makes mistakes, of course he's tempted, but when it comes down to it, he tries to do the right thing. The world is attuned to people thinking for themselves, being selfish, not caring about others, doing the job, getting the money, and it makes people in this world hard. But George and Lenny are light within that, and they give hope to others, and then it's taken away. And yeah, I mean, Steinbeck's another great author, like Hemingway. They know how to deliver it, and they know how to tell a beautiful story, and a heartbreaking one, which the beautiful ones so often are. So yeah, those are 7 classics that I found to be heartbreaking, and I'd urge you to pick them up if you haven't already. Aside from that, I'll see you in the next one.